characterized by a range of climates and landscapes, from Arctic tundra in the north to tropical areas in the south. South America, known for its diverse geography, including the Andes Mountains, the Amazon rainforest, and the Pampas grasslands. Key countries include Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Peru. 2. Indigenous peoples. Before European colonization, the Americas were home to diverse indigenous cultures with their own languages, traditions, and social structures. Examples include the Maya, Aztec, and Inca in Central and South America, and various tribes like the Sioux, Apache, and Iroquois in North America. These groups developed complex societies with agriculture, trade, and governance systems long before European arrival. 3. Colonization and European presence. Exploration. European contact began in the late 15th century, starting with Christopher Columbus in 1492. Following him, other explorers such as John Cabot, Hernán Cortés, and Francisco Pizarro ventured into the Americas, leading to significant changes. Colonization. Major European powers, including Spain, France, England, and Portugal, established colonies. Spain colonized large parts of South America and the southwestern United States, while England focused on the eastern seaboard of North America. 4.
SWB audio capture, not registered.
The Atlantic coast of North America. These colonies had varying economies and cultures, leading to different regional identities. Tensions between the colonists and British authorities grew, leading to the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, and eventual independence. 5. Formation of the United States. The United States was officially formed in 1776 with the Declaration of Independence and later established its Constitution in 1787. The U.S. expanded westward throughout the 19th century, driven by the idea of manifest destiny, which led to the acquisition of vast territories, often at the expense of indigenous peoples. 6. Civil War and Reconstruction. The American Civil War 1861 to 1865 was fought over issues including states' rights and slavery. The war ended slavery in the U.S. and led to the Reconstruction era, during which attempts were made to integrate formerly enslaved people into society. 7. Modern America. The U.S. emerged as a global power in the 20th century. Significant events including World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, and the Cold War shaping its trajectory. Social movements, including the Civil Rights Movement, aimed to address racial injustice and promote equality for all citizens. 8. Cultural diversity. The U.S. is known for its cultural diversity, influenced by waves of immigration from around the world. This has led to a rich tapestry of cultural practices, languages, cuisines, music, and art. The culture is also reflected in global phenomena such as Hollywood cinema, popular music genres, like jazz, rock, and hip-hop, and technological innovation. 9. Current issues. Today, America faces various challenges, including political polarization, social justice issues, economic inequality, and climate change. The discourse around immigration, healthcare.
SWV audio capture, not registered.
Activists in the Americas. Beyond the U.S., the Americas consist of a range of cultures and societies, relationships between countries, trade agreements, like NAFTA and more recently the USMCA, and cultural exchanges are key aspects of life in the Americas. If you have a specific area of interest regarding America, be it history, culture, geography, or current events, please let me know, and I'd be glad to provide more detailed information.
You still didn't tell me why they had to go get slaves. What was the reason for American to go get slaves at the time? Why did they need to do that?
The transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly brought millions of enslaved Africans to the Americas, was driven by several economic, social, and political factors. Here are the primary reasons why slavery became entrenched in American society, particularly in the southern colonies. 1. Economic demand for labor. Plantation agriculture. The colonies, especially in the South, had agricultural economies that relied heavily on cash crops, such as tobacco, cotton, and sugar. These crops required a vast amount of labor for planting, tending, and harvesting. Labor shortages. European indentured servitude was initially a common labor source, but as the economy grew and the demand for labor increased, There were not enough indentured servants to meet the needs of plantation owners. Enslaved Africans became a solution to this labor shortage. 2. Profitability, cost effectiveness. Enslaved Africans could be bought and used for a lifetime, leading to a
SWV audio capture, not registered.
servitude, where laborers were eventually freed after a contract period. High market demand. The products produced by slave labor, like cotton, were in high demand both in the domestic and international markets, driving profitability for slave-owning plantations. 3. Racial justifications. Racial ideologies. Racial theories were developed and promoted to justify the enslavement of Africans. These ideologies falsely claimed that Africans were inherently inferior and suited for servitude, which was used to rationalize the brutal system of slavery, legal and social structures. Over time, laws were enacted to codify and enforce racial distinctions, creating a system that viewed African slaves as property rather than as human beings with rights. 4. Socio-political factors. Economic interests of the elite. Wealthy landowners benefited significantly from the slave economy and wielded considerable political power, influencing legislation and public opinion in favor of maintaining and expanding slavery. Expansion of territory. As the U.S. expanded westward in the 19th century, there were intense political debates over whether new territories would be free or slave states. The interests of slaveholding states often conflicted with those advocating for free labor. 5. Transatlantic trade, supply chains. The triangular trade routes established by European powers connected Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Enslaved people were transported to the Americas, raw materials were sent to Europe, and manufactured goods were sent to Africa in exchange for more enslaved individuals. Established system. By the 17th century, the slave trade had become an established and lucrative industry, deeply integrated into the economies of both Europe and the Americas. This made the continuation of slavery seem economically necessary. 6. Resistance to change. Economic dependence. As slavery became entrenched in the economy, many individuals and regions became dependent on it.
SWV audio capture, not registered.
From its cessation. Conclusion. The combination of economic interests, social ideologies, and political dynamics created a system that not only justified the enslavement of millions of Africans but also made it a foundational aspect of the U.S. economy, especially in the southern states. Despite eventual abolition in the 19th century, the legacy of slavery has continued to impact American society in profound ways, contributing to ongoing discussions about race, equality, and justice.
So, could you tell me what were the slaves' price? Like, what were they going for? Like, what was the price for a 17-year-old black male? Like, or a 25-year-old black female? Like, what was the prices for them?
The prices of enslaved individuals varied widely depending on several factors, including age, gender, health, and skill level, as well as the time period and region in which they were sold. Here are some general insights into the prices of enslaved people in the United States during the 18th and 19th centuries. Price ranges. 1. Age and gender. Generally, young, healthy adult males commanded higher prices than females or older individuals. For example, in the early 19th century, a young enslaved male, around 17 years old, could sell for between $800 and $1,200, depending on the specific circumstances, skills, and location. In some regions and during peak demand, prices could go even higher. Young enslaved female.
SWV audio capture, not registered.
$3 to $1,000, though this could vary based on factors like fertility and skill, which could enhance their value as workers and potential mothers of future enslaved individuals. 2. Variability by time and place. Prices fluctuated due to regional demand, the economy, especially during times of war or significant economic change, and changes in legislation regarding slavery. For instance, prices for enslaved individuals in the Deep South, particularly during the cotton boom of the 1830s and 1840s, were substantially higher than in other regions. Records show that by the 1850s, prices for enslaved individuals generally increased due to higher demand for labor in slave-dependent economies. Historical context. In addition to individual sales, the pricing also played into larger economic systems. The value of enslaved people could be compared to agricultural commodities, and many slave owners viewed their enslaved laborers as investments akin to livestock or machinery. Conclusion: the economic valuation of human lives during slavery was a reflection of the brutal and dehumanizing nature of the institution. It's important to recognize that behind these numbers were actual human beings who endured tremendous suffering and loss. Prices of enslaved individuals not only signify economic transactions but also highlight the pervasive injustices of slavery in American history.
Okay, now give me a time and period of another race that was enslaved similar to the black Americans in America.
Throughout history, various groups of people from different races and ethnicities have experienced slavery or
SWB audio capture, not registered.
Indigenous peoples in the Americas. Time period: from the early 16th century onward, especially after the arrival of Europeans in the Americas. Context: indigenous peoples were subjected to various forms of enslavement, forced labor, and exploitation at both North and South America. The encomienda and repartimiento systems in Spanish colonies forced indigenous peoples into labor, often in brutal conditions. 2. Irish people. Time period: particularly during the 17th and 18th centuries. Context: many Irish men and women were sold into servitude in the Americas during the period of English domination. Although often referred to as indentured servants, many faced conditions that were similar to slavery, including severe mistreatment and long-term contracts that could last for years. 3. Native Australians. Time period: from the early 19th century onward. Context: Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples were subjected to removal from their lands, forced labor, and exploitation under various government policies. These practices were often justified under the guise of civilizing the indigenous population. 4. Asian laborers. Time period: throughout the 19th and into the early 20th centuries. Context: many Asian immigrants, particularly Chinese and Indian laborers, were subjected to exploitative labor conditions in the Americas, including on plantations. They sometimes faced conditions akin to slavery, particularly in the context of labor contracts that allowed for little personal freedom or protection. 5. Moorish slavery in Europe. Time period: from the 8th century through the 17th century. Context: during the period of the Moorish conquests, many Christians were enslaved in North Africa and vice versa. The slave trade involved various ethnic groups, including North Africans, Southern Europeans, and Sub-Saharan Africans. 6. European enslavement of Africans in the Mediterranean.
SWB audio capture, not registered.
Context: Barbary pirates captured Europeans and enslaved them in North Africa. It is estimated that hundreds of thousands of Europeans were enslaved during this time, facing harsh conditions. Each of these examples illustrates the complex and varied history of slavery and forced labor across different times and cultures, underscoring that slavery is not merely an issue confined to one race or group but a widespread and tragic aspect of human history.
Give me more information on the last one, the one you was talking about, the Europeans. Go in depth with more detail on that one. I don't know nothing about that one.
Certainly. The enslavement of Europeans by Barbary pirates and the broader context of slavery in the Mediterranean is a fascinating and often less well-known aspect of history. Here's a more detailed overview. Historical background. 1. Barbary states. The term Barbary refers to a historical region along the North African coast, encompassing modern-day Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. From the late 16th century to the 19th century, these regions were known for their piracy, which was state-sanctioned and often encouraged by local governments. 2. Piracy. Barbary pirates, also known as corsairs, raided European coastal towns and ships. They were primarily motivated by profit and the desire to capture slaves for labor and ransom. While piracy had existed for centuries, the Barbary pirates became particularly notorious during the early modern period. Enslavement of Europeans. 1. Capture and ransom. Many Europeans, especially those from coastal regions of Italy,
SWB audio capture, not registered.
time raids. They could be taken directly from their homes or while traveling by sea. Captives were often ransomed back to their families, although many remained enslaved for extended periods. 2. Conditions of enslavement. Enslaved individuals faced brutal conditions, including forced labor, physical abuse, and a lack of basic human rights. They worked in various capacities, such as rowing galleys, in agricultural labor, and as household slaves. Many suffered from malnutrition, harsh treatment, and disease. 3. Demographics. Estimates suggest that between the 16th and 19th centuries, as many as 1 million Europeans may have been enslaved by Barbary pirates. The numbers fluctuated depending on periods of intense raiding and conflict. 4. Notable rates. Some of the most significant raids occurred in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. For example, the raid on Baltimore in 1631 targeted an Irish village, resulting in the capture of over 100 residents who were taken to North Africa. European responses. 1. Military action. European powers often responded with military action against Barbary states, including naval blockades and expeditions designed to suppress piracy and address the issue of enslavement. The United States even engaged in the First Barbary War, 1801 to 1805, in response to pirate activities. 2. Diplomacy and treaties. Many European countries negotiated treaties to secure the release of captured individuals and to prevent future raids. Payments, known as tributes, were often made to Barbary leaders in exchange for the safety of their shipping. 3. Legacy. The legacy of European enslavement by Barbary pirates has influenced various aspects of international relations, maritime law, and cultural narratives about piracy and enslavement. It reflects a complex interplay of power dynamics, including the interactions between Europe and North Africa during a time of colonial expansion.
SWB audio capture, not registered.
Pirates provides insight into the complexities of slavery and human trafficking throughout history. It highlights that the practice of enslavement was not limited to one group or region but affected various populations in different contexts. This history serves as a reminder of the global dimensions of slavery and the deep scars it left on societies.
Okay. I've been drinking and I've been smoking, so
More questions, or if there's a specific
I'm out of there.
to explore further,
My eyes was low.
you ask. I'm here to help.
Just give me a minute. Let me think of another topic and we can continue. I got more questions.
Of course. Take your time to think of your next topic or questions. I'm here whenever you're ready.
I make this shit look easy. 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 I see what I like, then I go out and get it. I make changes, that's why I'm different. I see it before it happens, that's vision. Telling myself I know I like